I've already done quite a bit of outlining and detailing. Basically, well, this chapter 2 of this Apoloka is going to follow a character called Kliznarine right here. Kliznarine, that's his name. This is just his bio description. I have all the characters' bio descriptions in here. His is the most full. I may have used ChatGPT for a little bit of it. Okay, maybe a lot of it. I I had a pretty concrete structure of kind of like his base character and kind of a little bit of what I wanted him to be, and I just kind of used ChatGPT to help flesh that out a little bit. For the most part, the answers ChatGPT was giving me was pretty on point with kind of what I was thinking. There were a few things that I was like iffy on, and I just got rid of those. But so that's why this one's more full than like the rest of these, just because I did use ChatGPT quite a bit on this character. I also just kind of want to see how far I could take Chat how far I could take ChatGPT on this kind of uh on like developing a character. I just want to see how kind of far I could push it and stuff. So I was just kind of experimenting with it. Um, so yeah, basically when I started, the things I wanted with him was he was going to be one of the conscripted soldiers in the Republic in chapter one. ABR calls it the Empire, and that's going to be a whole thing where it's like they're technically called the Republic, except it's become so close to an empire that some of the civilians and people that are opposing it just started calling it the Empire. So I'm probably going to be calling it in the Republic in this video, just because the frame of reference, and there's more of a frame of reference of inside the Republic, and so inside the Republic they're going to be calling it the Republic, and so that's just what I'm going to be calling it in this video. Um, so Kliznarine, that's his name. He's a conscripted soldier in the 487th Legion, which is one of the best legions in the Republic. It's the same legion of the soldiers that were in Chapter 1 that attacked ABR, except those are just a company within the legion. Kliznarine is not part of that company, but he knows that he's close to some of them, and that's just kind of the starting point with this character. So now his species, he's Datsmursky, that's same as Dartwa Mazal. That was in Chapter 1, the Separatist dude. Um, Datsmursky, they have dark skin and tattoos and everything, but he was conscripted at a very early age, and so he doesn't have as many tattoos. He just has like very minimal ones that he had when he was taken. And then this just has his age. He's 26 years old, but because he's Datsmursky, that's like equivalent to like a 15-year-old human. Um, so yeah, this is just his bio description. There's his designation, conscripted soldier, 47th of the Republic, and his physical appearance. That, and then I have his background and his strengths and weaknesses and wants and needs. Those are kind of the key facets I feel like there are of a character. Once you got those four things down, the strengths, weaknesses, wants, and needs, you kind of have your character mostly fleshed out. Just kind of who this character is, what they're good at, what they're not good at, and what they want, and then their needs. I feel like really drives the arc they could go on, especially for this free ride. Like, I don't know exactly where this guy's going, but with his wants and needs figured out, I can kind of like, it kind of gives me an idea. Oh, okay, I see where this character could go. He just from what I have fleshed out of this character, I'm thinking he's probably gonna end up like leaving the Republic. Like he's gonna have to abandon them. They're probably gonna hunt him down or something, because it's kind of like borderline empire. But he's gonna start seeing through the show they put on, and see uh, what it's actually like, and he's probably gonna leave the Empire or Republic and go off and be his own, and then he'll have to learn independence and how to be alone and stuff, because pretty much his whole life he's been a conscripted soldier. He's always had his brothers and beside him and stuff, and he doesn't really know what individuality is. So that's just from like a first glance kind of where I'm thinking his story could go. I think one more key point is just his background, because like I said, he was taken and conscripted into the Republic at a young age. I had to do so much math with like his age and like how old he is and what that would be equivalent to and stuff. I won't get into that, but he was taken when he was 6 years old. That's equivalent to like a 4-year-old human, and it's because of a new law. Well, it was new at the time that this is taking place. It's been a law for 20 or so years, but basically the firstborn child of every family, as a tax, will be taken by the Republic and conscripted into their army. He was taken when he was 6 because the law was implemented when he was 6, and so when the law was implemented, they took the firstborns of every family if that was younger than adult, which is 18. I think that's just important for Kliznarine's character. So yeah, he's taken to 6, and so he's known military his whole life, and he very vaguely remembers his life before he was taken, which is also key because he very much craves freedom. And that was because he has those very small glimpses of before he was conscripted, but of course he barely remembers it. He was like 4 years old. Like he'll have a flashback in this chapter, and I specifically stated like he doesn't even remember his parents' faces. Um, so yeah, that's just kind of, I feel like, a pretty key part to his character is just his background, how he was taken and conscripted. I also feel like it's a very interesting idea and concept to explore because since he was at such a young age, he doesn't um, really know much of what freedom and life outside of being conscripted is like because he was just so young, he doesn't really remember it. And so he's very loyal to the Republic because that's all he's known, really. And so I just think that's kind of also some interesting ideas to explore. Okay, so now getting out of his bio, I'll go into my brainstorming. This stuff is for chapter one, and then this was before I got his name and everything, but I just outlined this. This was before I had his name or really any kind of semblance of his character. I just knew that he was going to be a slave trooper because that's what the conscripted soldiers are called, and there's some lore to that and everything. Oh, but I won't get into it in this. Um, I just knew. So this was like very starting. I'm looking at the chapter. I'm like, okay, what am I gonna do? Because I'm like, okay, I have a vague idea of a character. I have no idea where this is going or what I'm supposed to write. And so that's why outlining is very useful, just because it can really help guide you and help your creative process get going and uh, just get your creative thoughts flowing. And I think that's probably the biggest pro to outlining is it's just totally free writing. It's much easier to get writer's block. At least I find. If free writing is your way to go, then do it. I like to do some outlining, but in this case, I'm just outlining like chapter by chapter. So I knew he was a 487th slave trooper. So then things to include, and just some interesting questions like, what do I want to explore in this chapter? Like, what is it like to be a slave trooper? What is that like? Of course, that's a pretty broad question. And so I broke it down, and that's what these are. So it's like, okay, are they respected? And how do they feel about that? Are they liked? And how do they feel about that? Are they close to other slave troopers? And how do they feel about the Republic? It's just some like basic questions that kind of coincide with what is it like to be a slave trooper. Okay, other things to include in the chapter. The 9938th Company come back from defeat. That's the company that was in chapter 1 that attacked ABR and them. So in this chapter, I want them to come back and defeat. I want a lot of them to be dead and stuff. And of course, I'll get into like how are they defeated and what, because I ended on the previous chapter pretty much on the 9938th were on a high. It's like, okay, they're going to win. Like they were definitely at an advantage. So I'll definitely explore. I should have probably typed that in, like explore how they got defeated, but I didn't. It just, I don't know, I guess in my process, that was just kind of obvious and I just overlooked it. I didn't think to write it down, but that's something that you might want to write down when you're outlining something like that. Also, a lot of their company died. That's also wants to be included. And I guess more stuff I could have written down, but like I want the main character to kind of be close to some of these people that had died and more than one, not just like his best friend was killed. It was part of that company and killed, but there's like a group that he was close to and they all died or something. Again, probably should have included that, but I wasn't thinking about it at the time. And then, of course, just what does his daily routine look like? So that's kind of the questions I was just thinking when I just started the chapter. I did this before I even did the outline. But then I went and did the outline, did his name. I did tons of world cataloging. With this free write thing, I found that the biggest chore is just cataloging everything. Because I know this is a project that could very easily get out of hand. So I've just been trying to be super focused on cataloging it all and making sure it's all organized. And that's been a big chore with this, I found. I started with this outline. That was just very start to kind of get me into the flow and then the creative process. So after I did the bio, I then came back, and because I came back to this after doing the bio and I looked at it and I looked at it and I was like, okay, I can't work with this. It was just, I don't know, too vague, too broad. I just couldn't work with it, and so I just ignored it and started anew. So here you see Kliznarine, I had his name now, and just things I want to convey once again. And it was a process. I kind of took his whole bio and just kind of sifted through it and just kind of included some of the things that I thought felt most important to convey in this chapter. And so these are just the things that I think I want to convey about his character in this chapter. If it's in bold, that just means with the outline that I've done, I've done 3 pages of outlining. So, but just in what I've outlined, the ones in bold are the things I still haven't quite conveyed yet. Everything that's not bold, I've conveyed in some form or another. But I just organized them, in groups like there's Datsmursky, his conscription, current struggle, and then skills and weaknesses. And it just made sense for me to kind of group them together and I'll just go into an example because like Datsmursky, that's his species, that's his race. Race is probably a better word for it, but I guess I'm just stuck on the word species, I guess. But so just things to convey. He's Detsmersky, of course, that's gonna convey, and also he's curious about uh, that and his origin, and that kind of ties hand in hand to his backstory and being conscripted at an early age and knowing his home and his species for like a little bit. I also want to convey like he's 26, but how that's actually equivalent to a 15-year-old human. Now the exact numbers, I don't care about specifying the exact numbers, but just kind of conveying like he's actually been around for 26 or so years, but he because of his species he's equivalent to like a young teenager or like a mid teenager, like 15. Also because of that, and like his species age is slower, he also has a smaller stature compared to his comrades. And I'll get into why that kind of really plays into his current struggle and that. Also, just his appearance. It's nice to have a description for the main character that you're following. I guess he's not like the main character of this, but he is for this chapter at least. Especially because he has some tattoos, because that's a big thing with his heritage, and also his tattoos. That could be like a good segue into his conscription. I just put that in parentheses. That's not really something I need to convey. It's just kind of an idea. It's like, perhaps I could use his tattoos to segue into his backstory a little bit. It was just I thought I had, so I figured I'd write it down, but of course in parentheses because it's like, I don't know, it's subtext, I guess. And then his enhanced skills, because he's Detsmersky. Detsmersky, they have enhanced skills in the sense of, I guess, that's just something I decided upon. I just thought it'd make things a little bit more interesting, and so just convey that a little bit. And of course, I want to convey his conscription. He was taken at a young age. That's traumatic. I feel like that's pretty integral to his character, and any character that was conscripted at a young age, I feel like that's pretty important. And so just like how he was taken by the Republic when he was 6 or equivalent to 4, and how he's in essence a slave trooper. They're called conscripted soldiers, but their nickname is slave trooper. I just kind of think that's a cool term. It's like slave trooper because it's like, I don't know, it's dark and it conveys what these troopers are. They're slave troopers. They were conscripted. They were taken like pretty much from birth. Like they are slave troopers. And again, there's some more lore to that term and stuff, but that's not for this video. And then I put his switch when he was conscripted and how he had to adjust to rigorous military training. I actually ended up just unbolding that because I figured that's pretty just implied. Like I say, oh, he was taken at a young age. He was into the military. I feel like it's pretty implied that there was a switch and he had to adjust to rigorous military training and lifestyle. I feel like that's just kind of implied, and most people just kind of infer that. And so I just figured that wasn't as important to include. And that's probably one problem with this method of outlining is like, because I put everything that I feel like is important on this paper on this page, but there are some things that I feel like are more important than others. And so there have been a few instances where like I'll just kind of go and unbold something that I'm like, okay, I guess that's not super important to convey. Like I could probably tighten this whole page up and just make it more concise, but this is just what I did. And I don't even outline like this every time. Every time I outline, I kind of do it differently, honestly. But this is just kind of the method I ended up using for this one. I actually have been really enjoying this method and feel like it's really working and just getting my creative flow out and everything, and just made the process a lot easier. So yeah, in the next paragraph, his current struggle, that's pretty integral. I don't have like, well, the thing is, I don't want to outright state his current struggle. I mean, pretty much the struggle is he doesn't feel like he fits in with his legion because he's part of the most skilled legion in the Republic, and so he just kind of feels like he doesn't belong because he's like actually technically a 15-year-old even though he's 26, and that has a lot to do with it. Like he looks at his comrades and they all look like in their 20s to 30s, which he technically is, but he's like a 15-year-old technically. And so that just kind of like he has the emotional maturity of a 15-year-old, and so that's kind of why he feels like he doesn't fit in, and because of that. And that's also why I want to convey the smaller stature thing, because that'll just kind of play into his current struggle. But because with his current struggle, I don't want to outright state it because that's just bad writing. It's just like if he goes to another character and be like, I feel like I don't fit in, and all this because my species and I'm 15, like that's just bad writing. And so like the thing, where I'm going with this, or trying to go with this, is I have to convey his struggle because that's important. It's important to know a character's struggle, but I have to convey it in a way, like I have to convey it with subtext, because that's how you do it well, is do it with subtext. Because anytime that character just outright says struggle, it's just kind of like cringe almost. And so that's the struggle, and yeah. So basically, his struggle is Feels like he doesn't fit in because he's literally a part of the best legion in the Republic, and because yeah, because of his immature development, being a 15-year-old human. So he feels like, and so because he feels like he doesn't fit in, he feels like he has to prove himself and that he deserves to be part of this legion. Because he doesn't belong, he craves recognition and respect, and he craves acceptance and belonging. And that's just kind of his struggle. And also, he feels like he has to prove himself, prove that he's the best. And I think this character gets in a very interesting place because he feels like he doesn't belong, and so he's obsessed with proving that he does belong, and in doing so, he is obsessed with skill mastery and just training, and he trains so much, and because he's obsessed with trying to prove that he fits in, he works super hard, which in turn makes him one of the best. And I just think it's a really interesting place for a character. I don't think I've quite seen any character quite in this same loophole. Loophole's not the right word, but he's in this spiral, this endless spiral where he never feels like he belongs, even though he's outshining everyone in his unit. And I just think that's such an interesting thing. That's just something, and I didn't even plan that. I didn't sit down and be like, I want this character to have this spiral. It was just I just started listing his attributes, filling out his bio, and this is just the struggle that I saw emerging, and I just thought that was really cool and interesting. So yeah, he's obsessed with skill mastery, and then he's also very reliant on the military command structure and routine, just because that's what he's known his whole life. And then I haven't conveyed this yet, but he craves freedom, something that's not part of his structured military life, and that contradicts his sense of duty because, of course, he's technically a slave to the Republic, and so he can't be free while also fulfilling his sense of duty because he is very loyal and everything. And that's where I say his arc, he's probably going to end up leaving the Republic and stuff and deserting, because I have a feeling that a sense of freedom is just going to get bigger and bigger and bigger, that he's not going to be able to do it anymore. And even though freedom scares him because all he's ever known is this military lifestyle, and he doesn't know what it's like to be free or an individual, really. And so his freedom's just going to start to weigh down on him, and eventually he's going to come to a breaking point because he has these two contradictions in his life, and he can't satisfy them both. So eventually something's going to break and he's going to give, and I'm thinking he's probably going to choose freedom, and then he's going to have to learn how to adjust to that. And then, of course, skills. Skills aren't the most important thing, and honestly, because I don't really have these ones yet, and if I don't convey those, it's not that big of a deal, and I won't be too disappointed. I do want to kind of touch on him being curious and compassionate. Those are the two ones that I think are most important in the skills. And weaknesses. So those are also decently important, but also I could convey his weaknesses in another chapter too, so it's not the end of the world if I don't convey these. Basically, he's a 15-year-old. He's emotionally immature, and he's also impulsive. And then he doesn't understand larger strategic planning, and he can be too trusting and naive sometimes, and that just comes with, he's the mental age of a 15-year-old, so that just comes with that. And so that's just what I have outlined for this chapter. Well, what I need to convey. I have 3 pages of outlining, and I can go through that. But so basically, I don't know, you just kind of see my process. First, I don't know what the heck to do for a chapter, and I'm where do I even start? So I just start outlining the basic questions, some questions that I would answer, things I'd like to be conveyed, and then from there, I just kind of expand on the character and his bio. In this case, I did use ChatGPT quite a bit. I usually try not to use ChatGPT that much and just use it for some idea generating every once in a while. But I don't know. I just, because I was kind of stuck with this character, so I kind of started using ChatGPT, and then I just kind of, it got to a point where I wanted to see how far I could push it and how well of a character ChatGPT could actually outline. And so that's kind of how I ended up here. But it wasn't too far of what I was thinking anyway. I feel this is pretty much the character I had thought out. It just, ChatGPT kind of did a good job of putting into words for me, I guess, and then I just got rid of the stuff I didn't want. But yeah, so literally I just start with the most basic questions, and then I just kind of expand upon the character. Because the first thing I decided, besides him being a conscripted soldier, was that he's Detsmersky. That was the first thing I decided. I'm okay, what does that entail, So he looks like this, and he's different to his comrades, because I don't imagine there to be very many Detsmersky conscripted soldiers. And so it's okay, what does that look like? What can that make him feel like? What does he feel like that? And all of this. And also, his age, he's kind of older. He was old enough to be 6 when the Republic issued that decree where they then conscripted him. It's okay, and I just kind of delve into that. It's what is that like? And eventually it just kind of gets you to a point where I have a full bio description. And then, from the bio description, I just go okay, what's the most important parts of his character that I need to convey? And of course, this is a chapter for character introductions, this specific example, because this is a character, I forgot the word. This is a character introduction, and so it's just like, with this example, it's like I just take his character and break it down. But with other chapters, if you've been following a chapter for our, I am stumbling upon my words. If you've been following a character for however many chapters, you don't want to go through and be like, okay, what's the most important things to convey of this character, because the reader probably already has a good sense of, and so I don't know, with other chapters, you probably just want to break down other things. Like if it's an event, just break down that event. But for the character introduction, I'm gonna break down the character and try to convey the character as well as I can. Okay, so this is like things to convey, and like I said, when I started this, I just bolded it all, and then as I went, I'm like, okay, I hit on him being Detsmersky, so I just go and I unbold that, or I hit on how he was conscripted into the Republic, and I just unbold that as I go. You could highlight it too. I just did it because it helps me to kind of, I can look at this at a glance and be like, okay, I still need to convey that he's a slave trooper. I still need to convey that he craves freedom. It's just like a very quick glance. I can just glance at it and kind of know what I'm missing. So I just thought that was a good way to do that. But yeah, you could highlight it too, or change the text color. I mean, you could do a lot. Okay, so this is the actual outlining. I have 3 pages of it. So I just started, and I don't know, I just had this idea of how it would start, I guess. It just kind of came to me, so I'm like, okay, I'll go from there and see where it takes me. So he wakes up early in the morning, just like he does every day. He knows what time it is without having to look at a clock. He turns his head to see what time it is, and he is spot on with his prediction. And so basically, he wakes up, he knows what time it is. He hasn't even looked at a clock. He has no way of knowing. He looks at a clock, he's spot on. And then in parentheses, it's like the subtext, like what it conveys. This isn't like, so what I put in parentheses isn't outright told to the reader. This isn't in parentheses, this is outright told to the reader. In the parentheses, this is more like the subtext that this is implying. So basically, this shows his sense of routine and his structure. He's so strict with his routine that his body has adjusted to waking up at the same time every day, and he no longer needs an alarm. He knows what time it is because he wakes up at the same time every day. So that's like the subtext. So he wakes up not to an alarm. He knows what time it is automatically. That just shows that he's in routine, and he's so grounded in his routine that he even knows what time it is without having to look at a clock. And so that just kind of shows like his personality a little bit, like how dedicated he is to the military structure and his routine. And the next thing, it's just like he gets out of bed and it's a small room and he's alone. And it's just like, okay, that kind of conveys how he feels like he doesn't belong. And it's just simple like that. And I kind of broke this up. I just broke this up how I feel like it. Because like this is basically a sentence. It's 2, but it's basically a sentence. While this is like 2 lines. There's no rhyme or reason to how I'm breaking it up. It's just kind of how I feel like it. Like there's some where I literally, well, there's this one where I don't even list subtext, but it's just a full paragraph. I just kind of split it up to how I felt necessary. I don't know, do like you could do a sentence and then do the subtext, or like do a paragraph, do the subtext, or just kind of wherever you feel like you need to break up the, where you explain the subtext. And then it's like, okay, he goes to the sink, rinses his face, looks in the mirror, he sees himself. That's when I can explain his, how he looks, and I can touch on how he doesn't look like the proper age and how he compares himself to those around him. And it's just kind of like the parentheses is my notes, so that when I'm writing it, I kind of know what the subtext could be, and I can just kind of tweak things ever so slightly to help convey this subtext. And that's basically all it is. I just kind of go through and I think of ideas and I write it down, like what is stated, and then the subtext, what's behind it, what I want to convey. And that I just kind of go through. I'm not done with the entire chapter yet, outlining. I'm maybe halfway, 3/4 of a way done. I don't know. I have three pages of outlining, however far that gets me. But and then I just go in this pattern. And just kind of go as I feel. I mean, like literally, I have a paragraph here and I don't have any subtext, just because I feel like, this scene is a flashback because he pointed out his tattoos, and then it flashes back to when he was conscripted. And it's just like, I don't know. I just like showed it, and I feel like, because the flashback almost is the subtext, and I don't know. Just writing, I didn't feel like I needed any subtext. I feel like it was all just kind of like, this is what's going to happen, and I feel like it's pretty, because there's not much subtext to his flashback. Like I'm conveying his flashback and I'm doing that visually. It's just a different approach. Instead of trying to convey it in subtext, I'm just flashing back just because I think that'd be easiest and not like a lazy way. I think it's just easy to go in a flashback and just kind of convey some of that information there instead of trying to subtext all this. I mean, I feel like it'd be pretty hard to subtext that, like, oh, he doesn't remember his parents' face, or subtext that he was 6 when the Republic took him. It just works easier in a flashback, and I didn't really feel the need to put subtext in there. And that's really all this outlining is. It's just like, okay, this is what happens, and then subtext. But I just kind of, that's the framework, and I just kind of use it as I need it. You know, paragraph, I don't need subtext for that, and then it's like sentence, or here's the subtext about it, and I just kind of go from there. And while I'm writing it, and because I'm constantly like write it, and I look up here to like, and I scan through this to see what subtext to put in there, or could be compatible, and all that. And then like I look at this so often that I'm pretty familiar with it, and I kind of, the gears of my brain start going, and I start thinking of, oh, and then this could happen, and this would help convey this, and this, and that's just kind of how I go. I just start with what I have, and my brain just kind of does the work for me as I'm just getting out what I have already, and then yeah, that's just kind of how it works. And yeah, I haven't really gotten stuck with this process because I just do what I've already come up with my head, and as I'm writing that and going back to this, I just get new ideas. There was one point where, like, I guess I kind of got stuck. Like, basically, he's in the sparring room now. He's sparring with a robot. Another soldier walks into the training room. Klisnerine is alerted by the opening of the door and is aware of the other soldier the instant she walks in. Klisnerine smiles as his mood instantly shifts. Now, instead of angry, he's thrilled at the prospect of someone watching him spar. Mind if I watch? She asks. Sure, he replies. That was one thing where I guess I kind of got stuck. I knew, and like I wasn't really stuck because I had him being in the training room and sparring with the robot. But the thing is, I only had like a little bit of subtext for that scene that I had in my head. And so I was just kind of looking through. I'm like, okay, I want more subtext in this scene. I want to expand this scene more if I can. Because, I mean, him sparring with the droid, all the subtext there is like, okay, he's skilled. That was all the subtext. I'm like, okay, so how can I expand upon this? And so I added the other soldier walking into the training room. I state Klisnerine is alerted by the opening of the door and is aware of the other soldier the instant she walks in. That kind of conveys, okay, he's very observant and aware of his surroundings. So already that adds some more subtext. And then Klisnerine smiles as his mood instantly shifts. Now, instead of angry, he's thrilled at the prospect of someone watching him spar. That's subtext, and it conveys, okay, he's very much likes admiration and respect, and someone watching him thrills him because he just craves admiration, and so he can. They're watching him. He can show them how good of how skilled he is in combat, and then he gets their admiration, and that excites him. So just some subtext there. And mind if I watch? She asks. Sure, he replies. And this one's very subtle, but it's hinting at his trusting nature, because he's not as mature because his species age is slower, and so he's kind of trusting, and sometimes that can get him in not great situations. Sometimes he puts his trust in where he shouldn't, and so that's a subtle way of kind of, he's putting his trust in this soldier that entered the training room. Maybe he shouldn't. And that gets elaborated in the next paragraph. It's the other soldier goes to another sparring robot and turns it on, also to the highest setting. Klisnerine notices this in bits and pieces while fighting his current sparring robot. The other sparring robot that the other soldier turned on comes for him, and because he's observant, he notices this, and he ends up having to fight 2 sparring robots at once because this other soldier turned the other one on and like sent it for him. So it's like, that goes back with, like, she asks if she can watch. He says sure. He's putting trust in her, and it kind of gets him into a bit of a predicament. And it's just kind of just setting the stage for his character and kind of being like, this is something that could occur. It's almost like foreshadowing, because of course in this example he's not like in that much danger. It's like, it's a sparring robot and it's a fellow soldier, so it's, I don't know, already there should be some trust there anyway, I guess. But it's just kind of setting the stage, almost like foreshadowing, like, this is probably going to happen some more. He's going to put some trust in some people that he probably shouldn't, and he's probably going to end up in bigger situations than this. This is kind of almost a prelude to that. And I don't have anything planned. Like I said, this is a free write, but this is what my brain thinks. Like, he's probably going to end up in some situation where he puts trust in someone he shouldn't. But yeah. So, but yeah, that was kind of, this one kind of, I don't know, had me stumped a little bit. And it wasn't like I had the scene. I was like, okay, he's in the training room and he's sparring. That conveys that he's a skilled warrior. But it was just kind of more me thinking, okay, how much subtext can I put into the scene? How can I make the scene more interesting in a way that where we can get to know this character better? And that's all it was. And I eventually just kind of I was just thinking about things and trying to work things out, and because I got the idea, okay, what if there's another soldier there? I'm like, okay. And I also wanted to show, specifically in this scene, I wanted to show how he's adaptive. I'm like, okay, he's sparring with the training droid. what can happen while he's sparring where he has to adapt, and I can show that he's adaptive. And I was going through things, and I'm like, okay, well, like what if the sparring droid, I don't know, does something where it makes it harder for him to achieve his objective or something. And it was just such a struggle. I'm like, what? Like, how do I do that? Like, I was struggling, and then I had the idea. What if there was another soldier that came in, and because I was working with some of the other subtext I could add, like what the admiration thing. I'm like, okay, what if another soldier walked in and watched him, and then we can get the admiration thing, and then from there, like, almost clicked. I'm like, what if she turns on another droid, and now he has to fight two sparring robots instead of one, and then show how he has to adapt to that. So that's just kind of how I worked it out. And it's, I mean, like, worst comes to worst, I would have just had him just fight the one droid, and then I just would have moved on. But I just wanted to add some more subtext in there, and that's really the only reason I got stuck. And I think that's really the only other point I wanted to hit. But yeah, I just thought it'd be interesting to kind of take you through this process, because I feel like it's been quite a big process for me, and I really feel like this kind of guide really has just gone to make your string. And I feel like that's just the best, or the main reason to outline is it just kind of helps you with writer's block. So like if you get writer's block a lot, just try outlining, and I'm sure there's some other guides you can find of how to outline, and you can find one of those or try your own, and it just kind of helps get the gears turning and helps get your brainstorming turning and everything like that. And brainstorming can be very good, but also, like, if you want to just stare at a blank page and just start typing and see what happens, like, I mean, that's the true essence of free writing, which, I don't know, this is a free write, but it's like chapter to chapter almost now. But yeah, just to take you guys over the process one more time, just really quick. So I just started with the very basics of this chapter. I know I'm writing a chapter, and I know it is going to be about a 47th slave trooper. So I just start with the very basic things to include, like, what is it like to be a slave trooper? What does that mean? And I just broke that down. It's like, how are they respected? How do they feel about that? And basically just how do they feel about that with all the different things. And then it's like, I knew I want the 9938th company to come back and defeat, and a lot of them are dead, and that. So I just broke it down to the very basic questions. And then I just started creating the character. I found his name. That was one of the first things. Well, I guess his species was the first thing. I found his species first. I was like, okay, he should be Detsmersky. And then I found his name because, depending on your species, like, your name's going to be different, at least in this world. So that's why I found his name after that. But I just kind of started figuring out his character. It's like, okay, he's Detsmersky. What does that mean? And I just kind of almost just start answering questions. Like, any question I get while filling out his bio, I just answer it and then kind of see where that takes me. Of course, with this character, I did use ChatGPT. But like I said, I feel like I was pretty on the same page as what ChatGPT was telling me, and ChatGPT almost just helped me put it into words. But this was kind of roughly what I was thinking for this character. And like ChatGPT, use it if you want to. It's a good idea generator. Just don't like have it write a whole novel for you, because then it's going to be bad. But I think for ideas, especially while writing, ChatGPT can be very phenomenal. Like, I mean, like my book that I'm writing is medieval fantasy, and there's ships and stuff. I don't know the first thing about ships. Like, I don't know anything about it. And so it's like, if I have a question where I'm trying to be specific about something in my novel, but it's like, I don't know about ships, I just go to ChatGPT and I just kind of like a quick search kind of to get the specifics, and ChatGPT can be a good like idea generator. But so yeah, I got the character and I just kind of started filling them out, asking questions about, okay, Detsmersky, what does that mean? And I just kind of filled out from there. And as I get more questions, I just filled out more and more and be like, oh, strengths. Okay, what strengths would he naturally have being raised in the military? He's like, oh, he's probably strong and skilled and disciplined. And the strengths just like make sense. It would be kind of weird, like, oh, he's in the military. His strengths are he's the best singer ever and he's an amazing dancer. That would just be kind of out of place, for being in the military and everything. It could work. You can still do it, but it just would seem like a little bit out of place. So for like strengths and weaknesses, you just kind of look at what you already have and be like, okay, what kind of just makes sense for this already. And then after the bio, you just kind of go through like at least for a character introduction, you just go through, okay, what is the most important things to convey about this character? Write them down. Probably try to keep it as short as possible. I would say anything longer than a page, you're probably doing a bit too much, and you should try to slim it down, or maybe split into two chapters or something. I don't know. And then it's just like, okay, these are the most important things to convey by this character. And then I just start kind of putting ideas down and writing ideas, like, okay, then this conveys this scene conveys this, and I just kind of keep doing that, and then eventually it's like, oh, I already have half a chapter. It does take a lot of time though. I spent like 6 hours on this yesterday. I don't remember if I did his bio yesterday or not, but I did all the outlining yesterday, and I think it took me like 5 or 6 hours. So like it does take some time. Take breaks when you need it, but just stick to it, and it'll kind of work itself out almost. That's how it feels like. So yeah, it's just, yeah, that's kind of all there is to it. That's kind of how I've been outlining. I just thought it was really cool outlining that I've kind of started here, and I just thought I could make a video on it. So yeah, if you want to see more of this, because I think it would be cool to like get kind of break down my process and how I write a bit more, and just upload those as videos. I think that would be really cool. If you're interested in kind of seeing my process and the behind the scenes a bit more, make sure to like and subscribe. I would love to keep making videos like this where I just break down my process. Maybe even just like a writing day where I'm actually writing. I didn't get the idea for this video until after I already had all this outlined, so I was like, okay, I'll just go through it and explain what I've done. But maybe where I start, like I start a video and I'm writing with the video, and like I'm actually going through it. I don't know. Maybe that would be too time consuming, but